Today on the Physical Performance Show, we've got one of Australia's best endurance athletes, someone who has, kind of dominated around the 70.3 half Ironman distance, and someone who I've had the pleasure of working with as part of her team for at least the last 5 years. So super proud to be part of Team Salthouse. I'm going to welcome, Ellie Salthouse to the show today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, mate. I wanted to obviously, we've been trying to tee up a bit of a chat on the podcast for a while. I get the pleasure of chatting to you a couple of times a week over an extended period of time. So I feel like, we're friends now, and I've got to really enjoy getting to meet you. And in the wider community, you're someone who's held with really high regard in terms of I've never heard anyone have a bad thing to say about you. So it was really exciting to see on the weekend a home T100 race where you've had a rough year, and to see it all come together on the day and for you to execute on a really cool race in front of friends and family was really special to be a part of. So, mate, do you mind sharing a little bit about, what went into making the weekend happen and how you feel you went, and can we unpack the race that happened?
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for inflating my ego. But no, it was really exciting. I think that's the best part about a home race is like I can have my family and friends there. They don't have to travel too far. And it's just really nice to have the whole crowd behind you as well. So, I think that was by far the best part. But I was really stoked with the result as well. I think I executed almost a perfect day for me. We went out there with a plan and I executed it the best I could. And it got me fourth place. Ultimately, I would have loved a podium, but I mean, I did everything I could out there, so I can't expect any more than that. So I have to be happy with fourth.
Yeah, the competitor inside of you, obviously, unless you're winning races, I'm assuming even then you'd probably find things that you could work on. So that's only natural. It was an awesome thing to be a part of. Like I said, I usually, my work's done well and truly before race day, but to be a part of the kind of the few days leading into it, and then to see it on the day unfold, and it gives you a new level of appreciation for what goes on and what you're actually prepping athletes for. Mate, it is really cool seeing Zach, your partner and coach, what he does on race day. A few messages on whiteboards being run out, and the emotions of your family, like your mum and your dad are on the sideline, and there's a few videos where you can hear your mum like going crazy.
From Brisbane.
Like how is it on the let's kind of go back, because we spoke about how you came fourth there, but the days leading into a race like that, what's your process like?
Yeah, I mean, it was so cool to have you there and to have Pete, my cycling coach, as well, amongst my other team members. But it's the first time that you guys have got to watch a big event in person, which was really cool. The days leading in, I try to keep each race week pretty much the same. So I like to get into the event at least a week before. And then I guess I just try and keep my training. I don't really like to taper off too much. I'm one of those athletes who keeps quite a high volume leading into a race, just with a few little speed intervals here and there just to sharpen things up towards the race. I guess leading in, I had you there for like a lot of my sessions in the last few days before the race, which was really cool. I think it was like any other event down there. I just tried to take the pressure off myself and just tried to keep things relatively normal the best I could.
It's funny, you mentioned the word pressure there. I wasn't competing, but I could, in that team, well, not a team hotel, but where all the athletes are staying. I don't know if that's a strategic thing or just a logistics thing by having everyone who's about to race against each other in the one place. But you could definitely feel the tension, and, while people are nice with one another, there's still that competitive element of knowing you're about to go out against them as well.
I mean, it's a good and a bad thing. It's good in a way that you're with them for a whole week leading into the race. So by the time race day rolls around, like all of that like tension is kind of worn off. But on the other hand, of course, like you're friends to each other's face, but you want to beat each other out on the race course. So seeing each other all the time at the breakfast buffet and like around the hotel, I mean, it does get a little nerve-wracking, especially the closer you get to the event, because everyone gets really stuck into their routines by then. But yeah, I mean, I think that's like logistically it's T100's way of just making things easier for us. But yeah, I really struggled with that early on this year, but I think I'm getting used to having everybody in the same area at the same time now.
You said you struggled with it at the beginning of the year. You know, it was quite public around you having an injury, a knee surgery that you had to come back from. Like, what's the journey been since then? Because obviously, you know, when you get in a pressure environment, if your confidence isn't high, like it makes sense that you're probably going to be more stressed.
Yeah.
So yeah, like wind back to like end of last year, beginning of this year. For those that don't know, can you tell us what kind of unfolded there?
Yeah, so in December last year, actually the week before 70.3 Worlds in New Zealand, I started getting some quite severe knee pain. And we went down to New Zealand as normal. And the week of the race, I guess I could barely walk, let alone run. So we kind of
definitely not normal.
yeah,
For the messages we were getting, panic
normal.
stations.
Yeah, I was, yes, very much panicking, spiraling hard leading into the race. You had to talk me off a ledge a few times.
But like that was warranted as well, though, right? Like it was, you had some significant pain leading.
Yeah,
I mean,
I couldn't climb stairs. I had to go backwards down the stairs, and I could barely even walk around. And we had to remove a lot of my run sessions, which, as a creature of habit, that's really difficult to have to rearrange race week, but we managed. And I guess in the race, I actually didn't feel it at all, which was great. However, after the race, for the next 4 days, I had a balloon as a knee. We could barely see my kneecap. It was so swollen. And so we knew something was really wrong. So yeah, I returned back after Worlds, and we decided that a scan would be the best option. So off I went to get a scan, and yeah, they found some cartilage missing from behind the patella, and then I guess floating fragments from that missing cartilage just kind of around the knee. So yeah, I definitely needed surgery. I wasn't able to run or walk properly, so the only option to get back on the race course was to have surgery.
The mechanism of injury, like, was a race in China, like a bit of a hype extension on some wet paint, you know, causing like a mechanism to, you know, obviously defragment some cartilage and bone. And you downplayed that, didn't feel it in the race. Like pushing power on the bike was pretty tough. And then when you came back to Australia after you had a bit of time off, the swelling had gone down, but you attempted a run session and then it had blown up.
Yeah.
So you had the surgery. When was that during the year?
That was early February, so not the best timing. My season was supposed to start early March, so knowing that I had to have the surgery at the beginning of February, I was extremely optimistic that I would be back on the race course by April, which wasn't to be the case, but I guess it was good. It kept me hungry and motivated to try and get back as quickly as possible in the safest, most conservative manner that we could. But yeah, it definitely put a spanner in the works for the rest of the year.
And like we've said this now in retrospect, like maybe that was not a good thing to happen, but like looking for the positive that comes from an injury. More time at home, more time to build like a really solid foundation. We've got like, Brad Beer, where we enlisted him to kind of help on the injury rehab as well, just because it was something that's not a usual injury for an endurance athlete, at least. So yeah, I guessing getting good input from other parts of the team, and then going through a rehab process where we were able to kind of work on what we could, keep everything sharp and strong. So by the time you could get back to running and kind of the components of training to be back to your peak, we hadn't completely dropped the ball at that point. So talk us through a bit of the rehab in terms of, what kind of milestones were you hitting? How long were you in that process?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, like I kind of view this whole injury as almost a blessing in disguise. Like, one, it gave me the opportunity to work on so many other things that maybe I would have overlooked if I didn't have it. And then secondly, now that we're getting to the back end of the year, I feel like I'm in a position where I'm the most fresh athlete out on course, having only raced 5 times at this point. Whereas typically we would have raced nearly 8 or 9 times by now and starting to get tired and wanting to wind down the season with the 2 biggest races of my year still left to go. So I think we've actually come into some great form at the perfect time because of the injury. So I do have to thank it for that, as hard as it was at the time. But in terms of milestones and things like that, the surgeon basically told me I would be back racing in 3 months, which wasn't quite the case. We were back on the bike 10 days after the surgery, just easy spinning indoors, and back in the pool 10 days after as well. Once the infection and the wound had fully closed, I was able to get back in the water. So that was nice. I mean, 10 days was a nice little break that gave me the chance to kind of take care of the knee, also spend some extra time with family, friends, things like that. Taking care of small things like nutrition, supplementation, things that I could control without training. So yeah, 10 days, completely nothing. And then I was able to get back in the pool on the bike. And then I guess we just gradually started building my ride time up from there. So I was only allowed to ride indoors with 0 pain. So I could just easy spin. We built it up from, I think my first ride was 15 minutes, maybe 10. And then slowly every second day we would add 5 minutes or add a little bit of intensity, just to keep me motivated and to keep me engaged, I guess. But eventually it got out to 2 hours on the trainer, and then I was cleared to go out on the road at I think that was maybe week 3 or 4 post-surgery. And then you and I started adding 3 sessions back in the gym after that, just to try and build some strength. And we were really, really hammering the knee rehab and trying to get my quad to fire. It took how many, 6 weeks or more to get my quad to fire again?
Yeah, I mean, we were trying everything as well, right?
Yeah.
Neuromuscular stimulation, blood flow restriction.
Everything. We just couldn't get the quad to come back. And then eventually just one day it kind of just clicked and it was back. But we had to rebuild a lot of muscle that I had lost during that time. So yeah, back from surgery to being back racing was 5 months back. So I ended up being off a start line for 6 months to the day.
So as a professional athlete, someone who your livelihood really, it rests on you performing, being an athlete, being able to race. And I work with a lot of athletes who, are injured, and I know the mental toll stuff like this plays on it. So how stressful is that component of, a deadline, trying to get back to a race when you've got external pressures, plus, you're a competitive person, you want to race and compete. How was the mental toll of an injury like that?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part. I mean, for me, my favorite part about this job is racing. I love the racing. I'm a racer, and when I can't do that, it definitely takes a mental toll. I mean, you have really nothing that you're kind of working towards at that point. Although I have bigger goals down the line, you don't have those small stepping stone goals that you're typically used to ticking off or trying to achieve. So I think staying engaged, staying motivated is probably the hardest thing. But for me, having a plan and having a timeline and a schedule to getting back on track and having things that I can work on and tick off, I think that was the most important thing for me. I'm one of those people that kind of needs a checklist of things. So to have just small things, even nailing my nutrition that day or just small daily tasks that I can control, I think that's what helped me get back on the start line and get back to form in the way that I did.
So process driven, coming back into the things that were in your control, which obviously a lot of things are outside of your control when you're injured.
Yeah.
Another, is there pressure from sponsors in that point to, get back and race, or is the pressure only coming from within?
Yeah, I think predominantly from within. I mean, there are some clauses in certain contracts that I have to race like every 90 days or things like that. But I mean, I think injury is a bit of an exception, particularly if you have like a season planned. I think those types of things are more to avoid people just, taking time off for no reason. So yeah, I think sponsors are generally very good with injury and things like that, and they give you the time that you need for the rehab and to get back racing in a manner that's not going to affect you long term. They don't want you to rush back. So I think, yeah, the pressure was definitely coming from within, more so that I was just itching to get back on the race course. It wasn't a case of like, I have to get back racing. It was just like, I want to get back racing because I missed it and I love it. And when something you love is taken away from you like that, it's really difficult to, I don't know, stay motivated and stay on track. So yeah, that was for me, like my big goal was to get back by June because I wanted to be back racing for the championship races, and I still wanted to be able to fulfill my T100 contract.
Yeah, gotcha. So Vancouver was the first one back?
Yeah.
How did that one go?
Actually, surprisingly well. We had done about, at that point, 3 weeks of structured run training. So we started out running, I want to say May, maybe, and we started out with, I don't know, 30 seconds jog, 1 minute walk, multiple times, and slowly built up from there. It was a very boring, drawn out process, but it's all I could handle at the time. So by June 14, when Vancouver was, I had literally been back running 2 or 3 weeks of structured training at that point. So we weren't expecting great things from the run. I think I went in with the expectation that if I could run 4:30 pace for 18 kilometers, that would be a job well done. And same on the bike. I mean, I had been back structured riding for about 6 weeks at a time, which is, when you're coming off not a huge base, I mean, months of nothing, that's not a long amount of time. I mean, 6 weeks to prepare for a race coming off of a big block, that's fine, but having done not much since February and then only having 6 weeks, it just wasn't enough to have me at my best. So we went in with quite low expectations into that race. But yeah, we were pleasantly surprised. It ended up with 11th position, which on paper doesn't sound great, but given the caliber of the field and what I had just gone through.
And the state of the body.
Yeah, the state of the body, the lack of fitness. Yeah, very happy with that. And I ended up running 3:56 pace for the 18K. So that was a nice surprise as well, of very minimal prep. So yeah, I was quite pleased with that one.
Yeah, I remember the headspace going in. It was a strange one because obviously you felt underprepared, but also the expectations on you were not high. Yeah. So the pressure maybe was even a little lower than when you go in fit because you're expecting yourself to do well.
Yeah, 100%. It was like this weird balance of trying not to be complacent and then also not trying to put too much pressure on the day. So I had to find this like nice balance so that I wasn't like unmotivated to race, but then also wasn't over the top, like with the pressure and trying to put too much expectation on results. So yeah.
How do you feel when you turn up to the salon, you see all the other girls and presumably they're probably in pretty good fitness, and how do you feel turning up to that race?
I mean, it's pretty daunting. Like, you're underdone. But I think everybody realized that I was underdone as well. So when everyone's like really, really fit and you're like not, it is hard to stand on the start line with them knowing that you're not really going to be competitive that day and not at the pointy end of the race, which is where I typically want to be. But yeah, I think as long as you keep your expectations in check, and that was the biggest thing for me, like knowing that I had these kind of goals within the race that I wanted to tick personally. I knew the result wasn't going to be where I wanted it to be, but yeah, I think I ticked all the small goals that I could manage.
Yeah, I think what you came away with is from that, with the knee was feeling good, so it was a big win. In terms of setting the back end of the year up. Yeah. For the foundation was there very little training, let's be honest.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing like we wanted from that race, like going there, we knew the performance wasn't going to be great, but we wanted to just check the knee and make sure it was good in a race environment, particularly sand running, mounting and dismounting. Like we wanted to just make sure all those things were good and the knee was going to pull up fine.
Yeah, and like the time frame from there was like February, March to mid-year. While it sounds like it could be a little bit of time, you've also spoken to other pros who are some of the best athletes in the world who have had a similar injury that have taken much longer to come back from. So in reality, it was like a pretty impressive time frame, even though the surgeon may have set some unreal expectations to start. So
yeah, I mean, I spoke to Jan Frodeno in April in Singapore when I went for the T100 just to, for media reasons. And he asked me what had happened, and he'd had the exact same surgery. And he kind of looked at me when I told him I wanted to be back on the start line in June, and he kind of like looked at me, but I could tell he didn't want to like burst my bubble. But later I found out it took him a whole year to come back from the same surgery. So if you listen to the coverage of the T100 in Vancouver, a lot of it is just Jan talking about how he can't believe I'm back on the start line. So that made me feel a lot better about myself.
Yeah, go rehab team.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned the other element of what was outside of your control, racing, etc. But there are a lot of things inside your control. And if you don't mind me saying this, I feel like in the past your mental game has potentially been something that's let you down. The pressure of big situations for someone who's, should be top 5 most races. Sometimes you don't perform the way that you turn up to the race. You've started working with someone this year in that space, and now it's almost like become a superpower to the point where it's an asset. Like, can you talk me through, previously how you would turn up and potentially how that would unfold to compared to now, like what happened on the weekend?
Yeah, so I think when you start to become like at the pointy end of the sport, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like it comes with a lot of extra pressure and things like that. And there's this expectation to perform all the time, even though you're one of the favorites. So it's really hard to mentally handle that situation. I feel a lot more pressure going into races now. In the past, I used to crumble under pressure. I had no tools to be able to deal with the pressure and expectation and the nerves that come with racing. So I would just scramble my way through. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but there was just no consistency to what I was doing. And it showed on race day. My results were kind of all over the place, especially at the bigger events. I would just crumble under pressure, basically. So yeah, I started working with a sports psych last November in the lead up to 70.3 World Champs. I basically went to her and I said, I haven't been able to put down a good World Championship event. I've had 4 13th places at 70.3 World Champs, and it's the pressure that's really, every time I get there, I go in as one of the favorites and there's this expectation that I need to perform and I can't handle it. So help me. And she basically, since then, so it's been about a year, we've just basically created a toolbox. I have all these tools now for every situation that a race might throw at me or the lead into a race might throw at me. And basically, she's given me tools to be able to not only handle the pressure, but also handle my own thoughts and expectations and feelings and manage those in a way that's actually useful for me. So I think that's been very, very helpful, particularly the days leading in. Like that was where I really used to get into my own head and spiral, and it would just become a complete disaster. I'd basically talk myself out of racing altogether. So now that I have these tools, it's made it so much easier to get through those days and actually enjoy the process as well. And so by the time I'm on the start line, I've like had those days of enjoyment rather than fearing the day. So I'm standing there with confidence and excitement. I'm actually looking forward to getting out on the race course rather than kind of going back into my shell and not wanting to race or, hating every moment of the race. So it's been super beneficial. And yeah, I think it's been probably the biggest game changer for me in the last year.
Yeah, shout out to finding a good sports psych,
Yeah.
because you tried a few, and often I chat to athletes. I'm like, do you work? You obviously value your fitness, so you're doing cardiovascular stuff. You value your strength, so you're doing gym work. You value physio, you're doing physio. Your nutrition, diet, but like you value mental games. Like, are you working on it? And most athletes do not.
Yeah, I honestly think it's like it should be as important as the other coaches, 100%. Like it should be like the fourth discipline is the mental coaching.
And it's okay. Like you said, it can undermine all the physical stuff. You can turn up in the best, physical state possible, but on race day, if the mental game plays tricks on you or goes to a different space, then it can unravel all that hard work that you've been doing.
Yep.
And it's a really common story. And maybe you can talk to this, but like the experience of athletes going to sports psychs and it not gelling, getting weird vibes or not getting along with the person. And it's probably true with most things. You got to get along well with them, but not doing mental training because you've had one bad experience with someone there was an analogy, maybe not PC enough, but like if you dated someone and like it didn't go well, so you just swore off dating for the rest of your life. Like you wouldn't just stop there. You would find someone that worked well for you if you thought it was really important. Like what do you feel like is a good sales pitch for athletes who have tried a sports psych in the past and not gelled with them or just given up completely?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like any other coach. I mean, you wouldn't stay with a coach that your performances are going backwards, like physically. You wouldn't stay with a triathlon coach that's not helping you get the results you're after or isn't gelling with you. So it's the same with the sports psych, I think. I mean, coming through my junior ranks, I saw a sports psych just because the same thing. I just didn't deal with pressure very well and expectation and nerves. And so I was seeing a sports psych, but I also don't think I was at a place in my career yet where I was open to the sports psych and open to the tools that they were trying to provide me with. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like last year when I went to my sports psych, I was ready to change and I wanted to change. And so I think the willingness and being open to those things was the biggest difference for me, and that's why it's working so well for me, because I felt like in terms of my racing career, I had literally got to the farthest point that I could in my career without her help, because I felt like there was just this missing piece of the puzzle and this limiting factor that I had to remove before I could get any further. And so I knew that I needed her help. So I think that was the biggest thing for me. But she also she understands me. She understands my sport. I think I told you this in Wollongong. Like I literally think I could call her up and be like, look, I just murdered someone this morning. Like, how do we get through this? And she would honestly just like sit there and just be unfazed by the whole thing and probably talk me through it and help me. Like, it's just...
The caveat, Ellie's not thinking about hurting anyone.
I'm not considering that, but it's just,
level of understanding.
Exactly.
Like no judgment, just such an open book.
100%, such a safe space. And she's been around so many athletes who are at my level and even above my level and all different sports. So she just understands what it takes. She's like been in sport herself. So she's been there, done that, and just understands like what I'm going through, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. A lot of the time she literally tells me what she would imagine I would be thinking, and it's spot on. It's exactly what I'm thinking. So I think when you find someone like that, you hold on to them, because it's really like few and far between to find someone who understands your every thought the way she does for me. So I think it's important to find someone that gels with you on that level.
Yeah, that's really cool. And like we've seen the transformation mentally, like your ability to have bad things or unexpected things happen on race day and roll with the punches and still perform. What are some of the things that, if you don't mind, like tactically that she gives you that's been super impactful and helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just to be okay with my thoughts and feelings. Just sit with them instead of trying to like push them away or like avoid them, particularly leading into a race. I mean, she always says to me, a feeling is just a feeling, a thought is just a thought, and that's exactly what it is. So we have this analogy when a thought, an unhelpful thought pops into my head, which it always will, it's inevitable. You just imagine it's like on the side of a bus and it's just, you know, kind of traveling away. And that's all it is. You don't have to hook onto it. You don't have to try and take anything from it. I feel like in the past I was doing a lot of like, oh, I have that sort thought, so it must mean that, and that means I'm not going to have a good race, or this is going to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your body's protective mechanism to try and avoid a scary or unwanted situation that it may be getting ready for. So it's going to pop up these thoughts to protect you from that situation. So I just had to kind of become okay with those thoughts and those feelings that were going to pop up, not only leading into the race, but during the race as well. She uses this analogy of like little monsters in a boat, and they're all trying to, like, you know, you're rowing to Opportunity Island, and the little monsters are trying to jump in your boat and drag you out. And instead of just pushing them away, you just bring them in and sit with them and tell them it's going to be okay. Like, we're going to go to Opportunity Island and see what opportunity is over there. So yeah, I mean, I like that analogy because it creates personality to the analogy. And I imagine carrying around a little monster on race week, which is kind of cute. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just being okay and sitting with my thoughts and feelings instead of just avoiding them.
Yeah, very cool. Like acknowledging it, not trying to just like, oh, you know, toughen up, yeah, push it to the side, which is probably that old school mentality of just pretend everything's awesome and don't acknowledge the state you're in and the situation you're in, which is very cool. And then like that's a very common thing with like mindfulness as well, right? Like you're not your thoughts, like they're going to pop up, and whether you choose to hold on to them or not, entirely up to you. And then, you know, reframing the little monsters in there as well. The other thing I thought that would be really valuable to chat around that is like there's still a stigma, you know, wrongly or rightly associated with seeing a psych. Like it almost like implies that there's something wrong mentally, but you know, you go to a S&C coach because you want to improve an element of your training. It's like you had some great races. Like it wasn't like every race you got to you couldn't perform. And so, you know, as we said before, it was like 25, 26 wins at that distance. So it's not like every race, it was like that inconsistency of performance. So not to detract anything from prior to, like you're very competitive, like you're a savage who loves to compete. So it was just some races in those pressure environments that was there. But I think working on your mental game, if you feel like it's an important thing for any athlete, should be a priority, whether you currently struggle with it or you just want to be better and be able to perform consistently. So I appreciate you sharing that, because you know, it's can be vulnerable for some people to talk about those things.
Yeah.
But that's like, you know, so your sports psych, obviously we go to work together. You've got a few other people in your corner. Like prior to this, you had one coach. Mm-hmm. Now you've got a bunch of coaches. Can you share a little bit about working like Siri? I've met Siri in the past, and you know, I think I've told you I got off a call with her. I was like, man, I'm fired up right now. Like, I feel like I could take on the world. So she was, you know, very positive, like super cool lady, who was always great to chat with. And, you know, you worked with Siri for, how long did you work with Siri for?
Yeah, I mean, I was with Siri for 8 years. So it was a long relationship. And I mean, we still talk. So it never ended badly or anything like that. But I decided to leave Siri in 2022, 3. And that was only because I felt like I was at a bit of a crossroads in my life at that moment as well. Not just in my triathlon career. I kind of didn't really know whether I wanted to continue in the sport. I was kind of in a bit of a rut. I think I may have been injured potentially or going through something. And yeah, I mean, I was just like, okay, is this still for me? I've been in the sport nearly 20 years and maybe I want something different in my life. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of when I decided I needed change. But I think going back to the mental thing, Siri also had a psychology degree, so she was very, very good at getting the best out of me, which is why I think I had the amazing results that I had under her. But as you said, the consistency just wasn't there, because at the end of the day, she was my coach, not my sports psych. But yeah, I mean, she was incredibly motivating, super inspiring. Some of the stories that she herself like lived and like of her other athletes like was super motivating. And I originally came to her because of those athletes and her own career as a triathlete. So yeah, I mean, we had an incredible 8 years together, and I got some incredible results, more than I could have ever dreamed of. But yeah, I think when I did decide that I wanted to continue with triathlon at that point, I felt like the sport is moving at such a fast rate that I need a specialist in every area of the sport, not one particular coach for the entire swim, bike, run. I need a swim coach, a cycling coach, a run coach, a strength coach. I need someone who's specialized in that particular area, because I need to be great at all three, not just good across all three, which made me a great triathlete. I needed to be great at all three to make me a greater triathlete. So that was the decision behind the coaching change. Yeah, I think it was 2023.
So you work with someone, you're in their environment, you're essentially like living with someone, but they would become such an influential figure in your life. Like 8 years, how did that conversation go down?
It was extremely difficult. I think it was worse than any breakup I've ever had. Honestly, it was so hard because it wasn't anything that either of us had done wrong. It was literally just that I needed change, and I didn't know at the time what that change was, which made it really, really hard to communicate that to her as well. I didn't know whether it was me leaving the sport altogether, or it was I needed a coaching change, or what that change needed. I just knew that I needed something different. Otherwise, I was just going to stay in that rut that I was in. So yeah, I think that was very difficult. And yeah, I mean, we are still friends, as I said now, but at the time it was kind of like left us both questioning, like, where do we stand? Because it was, yeah, like a hard breakup. You know, when you go through a breakup, it's like that awkward month or so afterwards where it's like, are we friends? Are we not? Like, how do we like change our dynamic all of a sudden? So yeah, it was hard, and it was difficult to not have Siri in like a motivational cheerleading kind of aspect as well, because I was so used to her being at most of my sessions all the time, and she was just such like a big part of like pumping me up for each session. So it was hard not to have that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Hayden Wild just shared how he, after Paris, kind of parted ways with his long-term coach as well, and he said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It was like the most awkward conversation that he was dreading, like sweating, like I don't want to do this.
It was awful. Yeah.
I mean, it shows that you care, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you were just callously just chopping coaches without any remorse, like that would be a very different person we're having a conversation with.
Yeah.
So the fact that you care that deeply with someone, and obviously you had a lot of success with them and in some formative years, and as we said, super motivating. She's such a motivating, awesome person to be around. You glossed over, like, you think you were going through an injury at that point. It's probably one that realistically probably should have derailed your career.
Yeah.
Entirely. So to come over that hurdle, it makes sense that there's some pressure situations, questioning the injuries when you get to start lines.
Yeah.
How has the change since working with Siri to your new format of having specialists in each avenue, like what are the big changes, and like what do you feel like the big pros are doing a method like that are?
I think the biggest thing was it took me about a year to really figure out the new methods and to just gel with having 3 coaches. I think it was a little bit disheartening in the beginning. I honestly thought I had made a big mistake because my results kind of went a bit backwards initially, and I didn't understand the stimulus as much as I had series stimulus, only because I had done it for 8 years. It was second nature to me, but I had all this new stimulus. And the biggest thing was on the bike, I was using data. So I went 8 years without using a single piece of data on the bike other than cadence and speed.
Nice and old school.
Yeah, I would have that on my head unit. I literally just cadence and speed. So yeah, I went from that to Pete Richards is now my cycling coach, and he's 100% reliant on data. So it was a complete flip, and I had never ever used data. I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know what a watt was. It was like I was starting fresh in the sport.
And having met Pete on the weekend, I'm not sure how well that would have gone.
Yeah, no, I probably thought I was a complete idiot, honestly. What's a watt? But no, I think he was very, very patient with me. But it took me a good year to figure out how to train with data. So I think that was the biggest thing for me. There was a lot of inconsistencies in my training, and I would go out and try and hit the exact number. And so I would just be there was no leniency. It was just like, this is the number, this is what I have to hit. Whether I'm going through a red light, a roundabout, whatever's happening, this is my number. And I couldn't figure out what was happening, what was going on. And yeah, it took me, as I said, a good 12 months to figure all that out and just kind of find my own again. But I really think having the 3 coaches really mixed it up for me and gave me that kind of zest back into my training, and just really changed up the stimulus, which is what I was looking for in the end. And I just needed some new sessions and some new dynamic, and I think it was exactly what I needed. It was like the refresh I was searching for. So now basically I have my swim coach Sean, my cycling coach Pete, my partner Zach does my running and also oversees the load management and the whole picture, so to make sure I'm not overdoing one thing more than the other or adding too much load here or there. So it's working really well, and I'm finally seeing some great results in the last couple of years from that change. So I'm glad I did it, and I think it's working great.
So feeling like you've made the wrong decision going into a method like that, how long did it take you? Was it 12 months till you wrapped your head around it, or was it before then where you were like, oh no, I have made the right decision?
Yeah, I think after the 12 months, once I started seeing the training kind of correlate to racing again, that was when I realized that it was working for me. And then it was probably a good 18 months in when we started to see numbers that we'd never seen before and things like that, that I was like, okay, this is working for me. But now we're 2.5, maybe 3 years into that, and I'm having some of the best results of my life. So that's undeniable evidence that I made the right decision. I'm very glad I did it. And as I said, the sport is evolving at such a fast rate that I really do think having those 3 separate coaches who are at the forefront of each of their sports, I think that is irreplaceable.
What are the negatives of having that, if there are any?
I guess they don't really communicate with each other, which is where Zach's role comes in. So he has to oversee everything, adjust things. So if there's any negative to it, maybe that's it, that they don't have communication with one another. But other than that, I honestly don't think there's too much to be negative about. Maybe the fact that I swim squad, for instance, when I'm personally with Sean, it's a lot easier to do my sessions well as opposed to when I'm overseas doing them on my own. So I guess there's that I don't have that squad throughout the whole year consistently. So that makes it a little bit difficult when I'm on the road. But other than that, I really enjoy it. And I'm really liking the different stimulus.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I funnily enough had known Zachy for long before you guys were working together.
Yeah.
And obviously he's your partner. we laugh about it a bit, and Zach laughs about it, but sometimes I guess balancing being your partner and your coach, like how does that whole thing go down? Because I know he's very, obviously your coach wants you to keep you within zones, and you're very competitive and you want to push it. So going outside of zones, sometimes you need to stern talking to, but how do you find the dynamic of partner, coach, balancing that as a pro athlete?
Yeah, I think this is another thing we definitely had to figure out in that first year. There was a lot of arguments in the first 12 months.
I remember getting like videos of the blow ups. He's like, can you believe what's going on? Yeah,
I know, it's insane. But I think I think it took us a good 12 months to figure out that separation between Zach the boyfriend and Zach the coach. At the start it was like amalgamated into just one, and it wasn't working very well at all, because it would end up being that I just had no reprieve from training or triathlon talk and things like that, and that wasn't healthy outside of training. Like I needed that, like this is Zach, my boyfriend now. I needed him to switch it off at the end of the work day.
Yeah, you need to unplug as well, right?
Exactly.
So you're not just thinking and training all the day.
Yeah, and I'm fine with, planning a route for the next day or whatever at night, but if we're analyzing my training from that day and data and things like that, and we're talking about a session that I've already done that I can't change, things like that, that needs to have an endpoint at the end of the day, and then I just need to be normal for a few hours. So yeah, I think it took us a while to figure that out as well. But now we've got that down, and Zach understands that as well, that we both need our own downtime and separate downtime, because he does a lot of the training with me too, which is a great thing. Like I love having him there for my training. But as you said, I get quite competitive, and yes, I do get a stern talking to if I go above my zones or try and run or ride too fast. Sometimes I like to drop him and just remind him who's boss.
Shout out to Zach. Remember his boss, buddy.
Yeah, just remind him. But yeah, no, I think now that we have those like defined kind of roles, it's working a lot better, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, and seeing him on the weekend, because obviously I had chats to him about it. He loves the sports science. He loves the data. He was decent cyclist himself back in the day, and when we were running around on the course on the weekend, he's like, he was very aware of the fact that he loves to maintain his fitness and competitiveness so he can push you in your training and be an ally in that component. And I've noticed how he's changed his style of communication, which is really awesome to see. What I also found fascinating was seeing him on race day, and we see you come around on the bike, and then he has time to think about what he's going to write on his whiteboard and some of the messages he puts out to you. You were saying sometimes you don't hear anything, so it's nice to have the whiteboard, but it was very calculated in terms of time splits, nutrition, reminders. So it's cool to see how it unfolds on race day. When people are at races, what do you notice from the crowd? Are you just so in the zone that you don't take attention to pay attention to that? How does it unpack for you on the day?
Yeah, I think Zach's probably the biggest part of my race day, other than the race itself. He's gives me something to focus on, to read, to listen to. So it just gives me things to concentrate on that keep me engaged, and and distracts me from the pain, basically. So he gives me constructive direction, finish your front bottle, or bridge to the next group, or 3-minute effort, whatever it might be. Whatever's written on that whiteboard is like gospel. I've got to do that. So that's kind of all right, now I know my instruction for this part of the race until I see him again. So yeah, it keeps me really engaged. And also it helps me just form a plan, because sometimes you obviously go into a race with this plan, well thought out plan, and it's your A plan, but sometimes it doesn't go to plan. And so you have to kind of make a new one on the fly, and that just helps me kind of make the best plan for me in that moment, seeing Zach and he's already in his head formed a new plan depending on the position that I'm in or how I'm feeling or what's going on out there. So he can see that from the outside perspective, which I think is also really important, because sometimes when you're in the race getting caught up in it, sometimes you can't actually see what's going on or what's going on up the road or behind you or the dynamics that are at play. So having his outside perspective being brought into my race through this little whiteboard and through Zach, like, yeah, I think it makes a big difference. And like, it just helps me like stay calm and in the moment and figure out my next move.
How do you feel, like, how do you balance, obviously you're no stranger to the sport, you've been in it for quite a long time, and like intuitively you probably have instincts within a race that, you probably want to go out there, be aggressive, you would want to race a certain way. So how do you balance what you want to do versus the race plan? Because it must be really hard not just be like, chase the people at the front.
Yeah, I mean, I think discipline is another thing that I've had to learn over my career. There are a lot of times where I've just wanted to go for it, and I've burnt way too many matches, and it hasn't ended very well for me. So I am learning like discipline and sticking to the plan. And that's another thing. Zach and I always form a really detailed, incredible plan, like 3 or 4 days leading into the race. We go through the entire start list. We know everybody's strengths, weaknesses, where we think they'll be. I mean, you can't obviously account for someone having an incredible day or an anomaly or whatever it might be. But basically, we form this plan. We know who's going to be around me out of the swim, onto the bike, in my bike group, whatever it might be. And so then that's my plan for the day. And I know exactly what I need to do, when I need to do it. But there are obviously pivotal moments that you have to make a decision, like one way or the other. You have to trust yourself to be able to make those instinctive decisions in the moment. And I think I'm getting very good at trusting myself these days. And it's also a big credit to Wendy. She's helping me with trusting myself in making those decisions, because like, on paper, I am great at making those decisions. And in the past, I know I have previously made really good decisions. But yeah, just trusting myself that I can make them. So I think with experience comes the ability to make better decisions. So yeah, I know that in the pivotal moments of a race, like I can make a good decision based on my ability, and you just have to run with it after you make the decision, whether it be the right one or the wrong one.
Yeah, 100%. Like you're balancing the intuition of just being a racer versus the plan. And like when you're in a race, like it'd be so hard not to just get caught up with racing the person next to you. Yeah. And not, get caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
So, I could imagine the balance of that would be something that you roll the dice sometime and you come up short, and other times it works out really well for you as well. So I guess that's the nature of racing and the beauty of it as well. And when you were talking about being in the hurt locker and having someone on the sideline, that was another thing that I feel like endurance athletes don't get the credit they're due to, being like how tough they are. It's the ability to like we say, go to the well and how deep do you want to go, because you're going to hurt in training on race day for an extended period of time. You're not going to be suffering for 100 meters or a 1500, which a different type of suffering happens there, but it's over relatively quickly. Whereas you're out there for 4 hours, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, but the ability to suffer, like, is that something you just intuitive you have, or is it something you've had to work on? Like, because let's be real, endurance sport is bloody tough. The hours you're doing, the amount of heart rate, the intensity, the volume, it's all there. So is that something you've always had, or is that something you've had to like chip away at over time?
Yes, I have always had it. I think you're born with it to an extent, but I also think you can learn it, and I've done both. Like, I think I was honestly born with an element of it. Like, I've always loved to like be competitive and put myself in the fight at whatever cost that might be. But I think over the years, I've definitely learned that I can go deeper than I think I can, and like I can hurt more than I think I can. And I think that's almost a strength of mine, in that I know that if I'm hurting, most people are hurting more than I am. So it's almost like this saddest behavior in that I can, like, what would they say, turn the knife and, you know, watch someone suffer to the point where, like, I can, like, keep going, and then I know that they're hurting more than me. So it's like I want to suffer more to watch them kind of hurt more than me, you
That's
know?
literally the name of the game, right? If you can
Yeah,
suffer at a
who
high
can suffer the
intensity
most?
for a longer period of time, you're probably
Exactly.
going to win the race.
Yeah, but there's this weird element of, like, you're going out to race like these nice people, and then all of a sudden you want to watch them suffer. So endurance sport is a weird thing.
Well, I mean, you want to win, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the suffering is probably an indicator that you know, you're pushing the limiter. They're on the limit. It's like, who can push for longer? And
Yeah, I mean, that's the aim of the game. At the end of the day, you know you're all going to be suffering at some point. I mean, it's a sport, like, you know, with a lot on the line. So you have to suffer to an extent, but it's like, who's willing to suffer the most? That's what it comes down to.
But we had this conversation recently around, you know, really hard sessions that you've got coming up, you know, intervals on the track, you know, again, some suffering coming, race day, and like, maybe I've never pushed myself hard enough, but I had like the real realization that I was like, this is like, you're not going to war, because that would be a disservice to people who actually go to war, but like, you're going to do something extremely tough. How do you get yourself up and about to do a session like that? Or you know, into a really hard race or something?
Yeah, I mean, it does make me nervous. Like, hard sessions kind of provoke the same feelings that going to a race would. So I do still get nervous for the impending pain that I'm about to be in. But I think, you know, the thing about going to a hard training session is really you've got nothing to lose. So you may as well have a go and see what happens. And if you fail, who cares? You try again next week, you know? So a race is slightly different because there's a lot more on the line and you don't get a redo. So for a hard training session, it's all about seeing what I can do. The opportunity is there to find like this new ceiling, you know? So yeah, I think that's the exciting thing about training is like you look forward to finding your limits and pushing boundaries and getting new PBs and new power numbers and things like that. Whereas race day, it's more of calculated suffering and calculated effort because everything has to be within the plan and like within a calculated risk. You can't just go for it. Not all the time. Sometimes you can just go for it and see what happens, but often that doesn't work out so well. So you have to, make calculated decisions and just go for it in a more calculated manner.
Yeah, I mean, the hard sessions part, obviously you get opportunities, and there, I feel like where you can really shift the needle. And obviously you do a lot of your work not in that element, in terms of like, you know, there's only a certain number of hard sessions you can push throughout the week. That's a very, you know, I guess apparent shift in the training methods compared to old school, where it was like every session was hard.
Drill yourself into the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, what do you feel like the biggest shifts in, like, you know, getting prepared, practically for a session like that? Like, can you lay like, you know, maybe one or two things that, you know, nutritionally, or is it psych up music that's something like, you know, when we're going to a hard session that we could implement ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, definitely having the nutrition dialed is important. So Zach does most of this for me, but we know like how many carbs per hour I need to be burning. So based on the duration of the total effort that I'll be having within a session, because, you know, I obviously don't go out for a 3-hour ride and ride at like tempo for 3 whole hours. So there might be 2 hours worth of tempo riding in a 3-hour session. So we calculate the grams of carbs per hour that I'll need based on the duration of effort that I'll be doing there. So I make sure I have.
While you mentioned that, do you mind saying like early racing career, what you would have grams per hour versus maybe like now? What kind of jump?
I have no idea.
Okay.
So early racing, there was no calculation. It was just like, okay, a couple of scoops of Gatorade here, that'll do. And then maybe, 3 gels should do it. I'll just put those in my bento, off I go.
And would you have them all, or?
Sometimes, some days I would, some days not. Other days I might just, you know, I might feel like I want to fast that day. So I'll have 2 bottles of water instead. So there was really no like calculation to any of my nutrition regime or anything. It was just kind of what I felt like. You know, I knew I had to have some element of carbs, sugar, like sodium, but that was about it.
And now you've got guys, from like Precision,
Yeah.
Chrissy Harris and a few other guys who
Yeah.
are like, dialing everything to the point where you know exactly how much you would have if it's endurance versus tempo or threshold stuff.
100%. Yeah. So yeah, everything I do now is very much like for a reason. So yeah, we've basically calculated exactly how many grams of carbs, how much sodium, how much fluid I lose, everything. And I think that's the cool thing about the sport now is everything's so measurable as well. So it has come a long way. In the early days, really, there was no way of knowing all these things. So yeah, now that we have that, we can use it. So before a session, I'll make sure I plan all my bottles, what I need to take by which point in the ride, how much I need to take in throughout the ride, and then how much I need to replace after as well. So yeah, leading into a session, I'll have all that ready to go. And then I also plan like post recovery as well. So I know exactly how I'm going to recover from that session for the next session so that I can do multiple of those hard sessions in a week.
Yeah, awesome. And then you just mentioned recovery. What are maybe the top 3 things that you make sure you nail throughout the week for recovery? I know you mentioned you went to an awesome bathhouse yesterday with some cool contrast. What other stuff are you doing as part of your recovery protocols?
Yeah, so obviously you and I work hard on the recovery stuff as well. So I think your sessions help a lot with recovery and just keeping moving in a way that's going to be beneficial. So we're not all just doing strength. There's a lot of recovery to our sessions. So I think that's very, very helpful.
Yeah, even on Monday post-race where you could barely walk, we got you in here and got you moving.
The DOMs were real. 2 days post-race and I waddle in here like...
It's always a pleasure.
And you got me moving again. So yeah, no, that was awesome. But yeah, I think a lot of what we do is really helpful. And then I can also employ a lot of what we do on the days that I'm not physically seeing you. So just like around recovery and just movement and just dynamic movements that just help me feel better. And then I sit in the recovery boots as well. I take like protein. I make sure I'm hitting all my protein targets for the day. I think that really helps with recovery. And then, as you said, like ice bath, sauna, those types of things, 2 or 3 times a week. I don't have my own at home, so I'm not lucky enough to be able to do it every single day, but where I can fit it for sure, I'm aiming to get it done.
Yeah, awesome. And obviously, Whoop, you're pretty religious on tracking some of your data. So I know you're big on sleep and you sleep well, but what do you find the biggest impacts on sleeping? Because you bank 8, 9, 10 hours a night?
At least 8 a night, yeah. Sometimes more. I'm like embarrassed to say there have been a few 12, 13-hour nights.
Goals. With someone with 3 young kids?
I'm kid-free, so that makes a difference, I'm sure. But yeah, I think supplementation has really helped me. So I work with Pillar pretty closely, and I think the magnesium has been actually a game changer. I added that in probably 3 years ago and just religiously take it every night. So I think that's really helped. Another thing, I actually have invested in a really great bed. So I think that makes a really big difference. But it's almost shot me in the foot a little bit because when I travel and I don't have this luxurious bed that I'm so used to sleeping in, it does make it difficult. So but I mean, when I'm at home, that's another game changer for me in terms of sleep. I think those 2 have been the biggest things.
Yeah, awesome. Because I remember when you implemented magnesium, you already had the Whoop, and it was like one of those things you could see, more REM, more deep. So objectively, being able to track some of the, you track a lot of stuff. Yeah. So it's cool to be able to see when you add something in, because there's a lot of stuff you could be doing and should be doing. So if you are tracking a behavior, it's nice to know that it's actually shifting the needle.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think you can get really caught up in all the noise out there as well. Like there's so many things that people are like, oh, you should be doing this, you could be doing this, but you don't actually know if it's working for you if you don't track it. So I think that's really the only way to know if it's actually working for you, because everybody's so different and responds so differently to things and different stimulus that I think if you can track it and have that objective data, then you know it actually works for you, and you can just get rid of all the things that are potentially just noise.
I mean, there's so much out there. You send stuff to me occasionally, but for people out there who are considering adding more stuff in, what's the process you go through and being like, obviously you just mentioned if you can track it, that's a great first step, but what else would you do when you come across something new and, weigh up whether it's a good thing to add to the mix or not? Because, you mentioned sleep, nutrition, strength, recovery, all the big rocks that people, if they aren't currently doing something around, nail those first. So, but when you, your level and you're pushing the ceiling of what's possible and your potential, when you see new stuff, like what's the process you go through on weighing up whether it's something you want to add to the mix or not?
Yeah, I think like at the end of the day, you have to remember that 99% of like being a great athlete is the training. And these are the 1%ers that you're now searching for. So I think you have to really weed out the things that either A, are going to take up way too much of your time, or B, are not easy to do. So those are the first things that I look at. If something is going to take up like hours and hours of my time and for minimal gain, then it's probably not worth it to add that much additional like stress on my body trying to get something done. And then, I mean, I obviously look at the difference it's making for me. So if I do decide to take something new on, then I obviously track it and make sure it's actually giving me some improvement. I'm not just going to use something for the sake of it or put something in my body that's not actually giving me any objective improvement. So I think that would be another thing. And then, as I said, like the ease of use, like I want them to be things that I can easily use, that are going to become a habit, and it's not a chore to get them done. I mean, there's obviously going to be things like physically going to a recovery center, taking an hour out of my time, but I enjoy those things. So if it's something I enjoy, of course, I'm going to add that in. Like it's an hour to myself that I get to just chill out and do nothing and then actually get benefit from as well. So that's a win-win. But if it's something that's, a chore to get done, or you're constantly having to like be hounded to get it done, or you just forget and it's not becoming like a habit that's part of your general routine, then it's probably not something that's right for you. Like I feel like the 1%ers should just amalgamate and integrate into your life seamlessly to help you rather than be a hindrance.
Yeah, gotcha. And then when we come across stuff, we often lean on brains trust of people that are much smarter than I am to give us good advice, and obviously have experience around different supplements, training protocols, procedures, and it's cool stuff that we can then implement. And I get really excited by that stuff because it's literally pushing what's possible, and so it's cool to be able to work with that stuff around making what you can do on race day more powerful. And all those things that you mentioned, like you said, training is what shifts the needle, but all those other things make the training more effective or make it easier for you to recover from the training, so you can do more intense training and get the adaptation that we're after.
And I think it's really cool. Like there's so many things out there that I'll find something or you'll find something and send it to me, and I'll be like, oh, what about this? Like broccoli juice or whatever it might be. And it's like, then you do the deep dive and you find the research, send it back to me, and you're like, nah, there's not enough research, or yeah, this could be beneficial, let's try it. So I think that's cool. Like we can just bounce ideas off each other and then figure out if it's going to work or not.
Cool. And then and obviously reaching out to people who are in the space around doing research. It's really cool to have that network and team to support you. Mate, so awesome, chatting today around all the kind of like, the journey of this year. I feel like we didn't need to unpack the junior days because you've probably spoken at length about that in the past. So I just wanted to kind of get people up to speed and what you've been doing. Obviously the back end of the year, like what racing have you got coming up? What should we be keeping our eyes out for?
Yeah, so up next in just over 2 weeks, I've got 70.3 World Champs in Marbella, Spain.
And playing tomorrow, right?
Yep, I leave tomorrow.
Back on the plane.
4 days turnaround. So it was nice to be home for 4 days, but off again. And then after Marbella, I'll do a training camp in the Canary Islands for 5 weeks before the T100 World Champs in Qatar on December 13th.
Awesome. And then home in time for...
Yes, then home on Christmas Eve. Yeah, in time for Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Jet-lagged Christmas.
But there's like a bit of a parting tradition on their show. There's like two questions that, Brad has kind of formulated over the years that he throws out to guests that if you could boil everything, that Ellie Salthouse has kind of done, experienced up until this point, maybe to like a up and coming athlete, what would that piece of advice be?
Oh, I think the piece of advice would be stay disciplined, stay hungry, and trust your instincts.
Stay disciplined, stay hungry, trust your instincts.
Yeah.
I like that. And that's something that we have seen you do through injuries and hard times through training, that the discipline and hunger to get back and keep performing is always been there. So it's awesome to have seen. The other thing that we throw out to people is it's a bit of a challenge. So not a challenge to you, a challenge to the listeners, but if you could elicit a physical challenge for the listener, like for the next week, month, year or something, what is the Ellie Salthouse physical challenge?
Oh, this is a tough one. I don't know.
The pressure's on.
Oh gosh. Physical challenge. Okay. How about try on the bike? One of my favorite sessions, 20 times 3-minute tempo with 3 minutes endurance in between.
That sounds terrible.
Brutal. Yeah.
For those listening at home, what kind of zones will we be in around? I know tempo will be a certain thing, but for you, can you just share maybe what you'd be in?
It would probably be race watts or just above. So 250 to 270-ish would be kind of the zone that I would aim to do those in.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. That's why you're the athlete and I am not. Awesome, mate. Well, yeah, as I said, I appreciate you jumping on the show today. We're excited to see what you can do for the back end of the year. For those who aren't following along at Ellie Salthouse on the gram, is that the best place for people to kind of see what you're doing?
Yeah, that's by far the best place. I'm very slack with any other form of social media.
So jump along. We'll kind of see some of the racing unfold for the back end of the year. But yeah, mate, appreciate it and best of luck with everything.
Thanks for having me.